All right. Happy Friday. Happy Friday. Good to see everybody. I see a lot of familiar and new faces on today. So appreciate everybody jumping on this day. I am super excited about our call today. One of my favorite people in the world is joining us today. And I'll tell you, I'm really happy with you guys. So for you guys that are new onto our call, this is the Clear channel, KLEAR channel. I upload it to YouTube later today. So thank you so much for joining. I'm going to jump right in. If you haven't subscribed, I know. So make sure you subscribe ASAP. I don't really know. I'm just kidding. I don't really know. But we have our special guest, Brandie Park, on today. Hi, Brandie. So everybody gets a chance to see us. And let's see, I'm going to pin my video here too. Good old technology. All right, here we go. So, morning, Brandie. How are you?
Doing great. I feel like I got hoodooed though. It's like Ken told me it was Jersey Day. So I'm repping my Braves, my world champion Braves here. And you guys are all, thank you. I need some love here. I'm like, you told me it's a costume party, nobody dressed up. So what's that all about?
It's so true. So we have some other offices visiting this morning, Brandie, from all over the country. So I know people in our office. I see Gabriel's right up front there with his U.S. soccer jersey on. I see Alex there with his University of Michigan. I'm surprised you're wearing the Braves. I thought you'd some UGA stuff.
Well, my actual jersey, there's a manager who's a big Auburn fan, and he was talking mad smack when we played Auburn in the fall. And so we made a deal that I even gave him the spread. I'm like, I'll take the spread. I don't care. And so we had a leaders conference coming up the following weekend. And so he had to, in front of 500 people, come up on stage and put my Georgia jersey on over his suit and wear it the rest of the day. And I've seen him probably 5 times since then. And I'm like, please, can I get my jersey back? And he's like, oh yeah, I forgot. I'm like, because to him, it's not a big deal. But to me, it's like, I've worn that jersey. Like I have, specifics, games that like, it's like, your good luck charm, your lucky socks, whatever it is. Cause it's definitely not the coaches or the players in the field that win the game. It's whether or not I'm wearing that jersey. Right. Like, it's what I'm doing that matters for them to win. So, yeah.
And that I know we're going to jump into some questions about business and career, but weren't you at the national championship game this year?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was amazing. But this is the funny thing, because being from Atlanta and being a Braves fan and a UGA fan and a Falcons fan, I have like PTSD around sports. Like even in the last game of the World Series, we're like up by 7 and we've got 2 outs. It's one more out till we win. And my son's like, yes. I'm like, don't celebrate yet. I'm like, this is the Braves. Anything can happen. I'm like, don't, you just never know. Stop it. And then because I learned my lesson, I was at the Super Bowl when the Falcons played the Patriots.
Right.
And we were up 28-3 at the half. And I literally said to my husband, I was like, hey, I need to go charge my phone after the halftime show. He's like, why? I'm like, 'cause my battery's really low. And when the Falcons win and I rush the field, I'll probably get arrested. So I'm going to need to be able to call you. So and he's like, yeah, go charge your phone. And so to this day, people give me a hard time. They're like, you're the reason the Falcons lost. You left your seat. I'm like, yep, I'm the reason. Not the players, not the coach, nobody. I'm the reason, because I want to go charge my phone. So the national championship, I'm sitting next to one of my sorority sisters from college, and it's a 3-touchdown game, 3 touchdowns. Alabama would have to score 3 touchdowns to even come close to us. And there's 1 minute and 47 seconds left and nobody's celebrating. We're all like, because you just never know, right? You're like, nobody's celebrating. I'm like, is it possible? Even when the clock hit 0-0, we looked at each other like, is it really over? Saban's witchcraft isn't going to come back on us now. Like, what's happening here? So funny.
Seriously, in college football, I mean, man, there's some games that flip upside down.
I mean, when we played,
right?
when we played Florida, we scored in a minute and under 2 minutes. We scored 3 touchdowns in under 2 minutes against Florida, earlier in the season. So I'm like, yeah, we were not celebrating, that's for sure. Anyway, I digress. You want me to get started, Ken?
Yeah. So Brandie, so obviously there's a lot of people in our organization that know you. There may be people that watch the channel that don't know your background. Just tell us a little bit about where you grew up, how you grew up, and just family life, and then start of your business career.
Yeah. So I probably grew up a little bit different than most people on the call. I grew up on a dairy farm about an hour south of Atlanta. And so I have three sisters, no brothers. So there was really no I was expected to do everything. So I think work ethic obviously was a big part of my upbringing. My parents have been married for, almost 60 years at this point. And we were a really close type family. Easter Sunday, all my sisters and the grandkids were all at the farm together. We still do, we dye Easter eggs, and we still do the traditional egg hunt, and we do two separate hunts. Like, me and my three sisters have our own competition, just the four of us, for bragging rights. There's no prize egg. There's no it's just bragging rights. And then we let the kids hunt separate, and they compete, whatever. But pretty traditional and pretty, rural background upbringing. And, I would say for me, I am one of those people, like, I don't know about you guys, but I knew what I wanted to do with my life when I was in 8th grade, right? And I made that decision like most of us do. I saw a movie, and in the movie, this woman was a lobbyist for the environment, and she ends up, the president's a bachelor, who knew? And she ends up marrying the president and passing all this great legislation and saving the world and whatever. And I was like, that sounds pretty cool. I'm going to do that when I grow up, right? So, it's really awesome to make life decisions when you're in 8th grade, A, and B, to think about what you want to do. So like all through 8th grade, so in high school, I knew, I was like, there's only two schools I could go to for the degree I wanted. It was either University of Georgia or it was going to be Kentucky. Those were the two schools that I had options, not that options to go to. I could have gone a lot of places, but for the major that I wanted, right? And it helps that I was a massive Georgia fan anyway. And I've always, when I was in high school, it was when the Braves had their first run at the World Series, and we're actually, from worst to first and things like that. So, I grew up being a huge Braves fan, grew up being a huge college football fan. And so, and also, I got a full ride to go to Georgia as well, which helps. So anyway, I go off to UGA. This is my major. I'm excited about it. And, I knew what I wanted to do. So my summers, I was a camp counselor for a few summers, at a children's camp for middle school kids. My summer before my senior year of college was the Olympics in Atlanta. So I had some great opportunities to work there. And I worked at the Paralympic Games as well. So, I had some great opportunities to do things, but it wasn't until I was graduating that I really had the opportunity to experience what a day in a life in the field that I wanted to have my career in was like. And what I realized is what I liked about the position was about 4% of it. And what I didn't like was about 96% of it. And so I was like, here I am. I had my first, what the heck moment where I'm like, I'd known for so long what I wanted to do. And then I'm like, what am I going to do now? And I read an article in Bloomberg News earlier this week that said that only 20% of all college graduates use their degree. And they're typically very specific, like you're either a doctor or an attorney or something like that. That's when you use your degree. But like 80% of us, and that's the funniest thing I hear people say all the time, like, oh, I just want to use my degree. And I'm like, why? Nobody else does. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you go to college. I was talking to someone about this issue. She said the biggest thing my sons have gotten out of college is just how to adult, like living pseudo on your own and, being in charge of your schedule and different things like that. Right. So anyway, I graduated from Georgia and in September or in June of 97. And, back then there was no careerbuilder.com. There's no monster.com, none of that existed. The internet was just for registering for classes back then. That's all it was. There's no, websites and things like that. You still had that awful noise. It was like, the dial-up noise or whatever when you're doing stuff. My roommate literally had like a phone cord like strung across the apartment to like plug her computer into, like insanity, right? So, so when I was looking for jobs, you're looking in the Sunday paper. You get this big, thick Sunday paper, which is, it's so weird. I don't know if you guys remember, like when you're kids, how this paper has like gotten thinner and thinner, like every single year, right? There's less and less in there. But it used to be classified ads. You get this big paper and you flip through it and you have a Sharpie and you just circle the ads that appeal to you. And the ad that I answered said sports minded. And you guys have a better feel for it because you've heard me, talk quite a bit about sports this morning. But some people were kind of surprised, like, why would you answer an ad that said sports minded? But when I was at University of Georgia, I worked for the athletic director, Coach Julie, all 4 years when I was there. And of course, I'm a huge sports fan. And what they meant was, obviously, we're looking for people who are aggressive, who are outgoing, who are ambitious, and things like that. And so that's what that's what the ad that I answered in the paper. And when I came to, the interview, what I found was the people who I was around was, the first round of interviews was interesting because, I've been offered jobs like at the University of Georgia. Georgia offered me a job right out of school, the kind of job your parents want you to get, right? Like 28 grand a year, state benefits, all that kind of stuff. And I had other offers. And, when I came in for my interview, the guy who took me out was actually sort of a shadow day. So I actually got to see a day in the life. It wasn't just like an hour or whatever. It was like a full on, I got to go with him and watch him go visit customers and see real life, what the job entailed, which I really believe is a great way to get a feel for the position. Right. And so, my younger sister, she was a freshman at Georgia. Like I graduated and she immediately entered Georgia that same year in 97. And so, I was living at home with my parents while I was interviewing for jobs. And, my goal was I wanted to save some money and then I wanted to be able to move because my parents live like an hour away from Atlanta. So I want to be able to move, closer to the city, have a job in Atlanta and kind of go from there. And so it was important to me to know, like, okay, what is your break even? What's the cost of things and how do you save money, things like that. And so the guy that interviewed me, he, obviously the position that I was interviewing for was a commission-based outside business to business sales position. Right. But the great thing about it is the guy that interviewed me and that trained me, he had tons of sales experience. He had sold cars, he had sold vacuum cleaners, like you name it. Not only had I not had any sales experience, I hated sales. Like all those things like, the school where you'd sell wrapping paper and you get a prize or whatever, you're raising money for the class trip. I never did any of that. I was like, I would rather do anything than have to sell that stuff. Like I was not into it at all. So, but when the guy that took me out, he made it seem like it was a system, and it really is, right? You said the same thing to every single person, and to me, it was just like a piano lesson, like I've never played the piano. I've taken, I've taken music lessons before, but I've never played the piano or anything like that. But if I wanted to play the piano and I took a lesson every single day for a month, at the end of the month, I could probably play a song, right? And to me, that's what our business is. We come in every single morning and we get that piano lesson. We get the chance to go out and practice what we learned that day. And then we get feedback, right? You go back to that next lesson and they're like, hey, play something for me. Let's see what you did great. What do we need to work on? What do we need to get better at? But the real thing about it is because, Stan was so systematic and said the same thing to every single person. It wasn't like supersonic salesperson. And by the way, there's all kinds of different sales, but sales in and of itself is really creating a need for something that didn't exist. And I think people get really confused because what we do isn't really sales, right? Like there's nothing we're going to talk to someone about and say like, oh, no one's going to say like, oh, sorry, I don't use the internet. Like no one's going to say that. No one's going to say like, oh, sorry, I don't have a phone. Never had one. Oh, sorry. Like they don't everyone has the things that we're offering. It's just, are they going to use it from us or somebody else? That's it. Right? That's it. It doesn't matter what service we have. They're already using it. It's just either us or somebody else. So, to me, it was never about sales. And especially when I look at the development side of the business, what I loved about, the entry level was that, and as you move up within our company, when I thought about like a traditional sales environment, it's kind of like a me against the world thing, right? Like if let's say you're a car salesman or even a real estate agent, if I buy a house from Ken, then, that means that someone else misses out on that commission, right? Someone else misses out on that money, right? And so it's very much, I feel like, a non-collaborative environment where it's me, I win, I get. What I love about our business is that no one can reach their goals or accomplish what they want without helping somebody else, right? And so, the only reason that I have a great life is because the people that I've coached over the years, they have really great lives. And so I don't have to worry. And fortunately for me, this is kind of how I've always been in leadership roles, like in school, a student body president. I was in my sorority, I was an officer, I was on Panhellenic, like I've always taken leadership roles on campus. So, but for me, the difference is I've always had a servant-based leadership mentality. What I mean by that is, when I was coaching people or training people, it's never like, you go do this so I can get what I want. Inherently for me, it was, how can I be of value to you, right? And when I'm interviewing people and I'm deciding who I want to work with, my primary question is, how can I make your life better? Because if I can't make your life better and I'm not of value to you, then I shouldn't work with you. I shouldn't hire you. I shouldn't, be in your world. And that's another thing for me is that's why I'm constantly focusing on self-improvement, because I need to have new and better information to offer my people, or else I don't have value, right? And so that's my goal, my focus. And so what I loved about, when I first started is I could definitely tell early on there are people who had no vested interest in seeing me be successful, who reached out and offered to help and were willing to coach me and help me. And I just think that's really unique. I think that I think when people think of a sales environment, I do not think that they expect what we have to offer. And, one of the questions that can happen is about my early years in sales. Again, it never felt like sales to me. Also too, though, I am fascinated with like the human condition and how people make up their minds and make their decisions. Like, it is fascinating to me. Like when I'm talking to someone and it's like something makes total sense for them and they don't get it. And then somebody else, it makes no sense whatsoever and they're totally into it. Isn't it funny? Like, and it just like, I love like thinking like how people make the decisions they make, how they choose the things, like, it's fascinating to me. And so that's one thing I've always looked at it, as far as the field and talking to customers is it's more so me learning more about them and, engaging with them and whatever, more so that than let me try and sell you something, right? Because if I make a connection with somebody, like people don't know what you're saying, right? Only 30% of communication is actually the verbiage and the words that you're using. The vast majority is body language. And, people don't remember what you said, but they remember how you made them feel. And so for me, when I'm communicating with people, it's like, how can I evoke a feeling for people and get them to feel a certain way? And that was like early on in the field, like my goal, one of my biggest goals was, I'm just going to make 10 people smile today. That's my goal. And my focus was very much around, those kind of things. I'm not saying it's not good to have the other goals, like, specific measurable result goals. That's important too. But my point is like, you'll get those things if you're consistent with your actions. And if you practice at your craft and choose to get better about it. And so early on, I don't think I was great at sales. I mean, I literally had like one rebuttal for every objection. Like the only thing I knew to say was like, that's exactly why I'm here. Like, I didn't really have a whole lot of other, I wasn't like smooth operator or whatever, but I had a really incredible work ethic. I was usually the first one in the field and the last one to leave. I'm the one taking a 12-minute lunch. And I was always, high energy and I was extremely replicable because I said, I didn't have like, all these tools in my tool belt to rely on. I had to just, rely on being really replicable, which I think helped me later on as I was building a team and coaching other people, because no one looked at me and said, I'll give you guys an example. Someone actually came to my office one time when I was a consultant and spent 3 days with me. And they were like, trying to figure out like how I'd, because I had some records for being promoted fastest than other people and different things like that. And probably a day and a half into it, she looks at me and she goes, "Oh, you're not that special." And I was like, nice to meet you too. Like, what, who says that? Right. And she's like, no. She's like, what I meant is that like, you're not like superhuman. Like you sleep at night, you eat, you do that, like she's like, and I said to her, I'm like, yeah, because extraordinary things come from doing ordinary things consistently. Right. it's not like people who are doing well did it because they can, leap tall buildings in a single bound, or they have some sort of superhuman power. It's just doing the right things on a regular basis get you the outcome that you desire, right? And so I've always looked at it like a game of inches, always. And so, I don't care, I don't need the Hail Mary. Like, I'm like, give me first down every time and I'll take it, right? Like, I'll go there. Sorry, I don't know why. So I'm wearing a Braves jersey using all these football analogies. I don't know. I'm kind of cross-minded.
And hey, Brandie, I know so you've had this career. It almost didn't happen, right? I think it's such a fascinating story about your experience in the interview. Do you mind sharing that? I mean, I know it's like, maybe it's just me. I just love, like, it's just crazy. Like, talk about the game of inches, how life could have been different.
It could have
right?
been
And
different.
so, and I think, and one thing I know about you is you're incredibly grateful. You talk about a servant leader. I mean, you've come through me in numerous moments in my life that I'm so grateful for. And I just think that your life could have gone this way a little bit when this, you know what I mean? Do you mind sharing that? I just think that's, again, fascinating about life and careers and choices and how that started. Do you mind sharing?
No. It's just so funny because I was on Joey's call earlier this week, and like the people that know me so well, they know what questions to ask to get me out of that. So, no. So when I came in for my first round of interviews, with John, like I said, I'd graduated from Georgia. I already had job offers lined up. At the time, I was, like I said, staying with my parents, but I was substitute teaching in town at my local high school, just like, because it's flexible. You could, I could take a day off to go interview if I needed to, whatever. Right. So I come in for the interview, and you gotta understand, like, there's people in the lobby, and I'm wearing my suit, everything else, whatever. There's a dude sitting in the lobby wearing, I'm not even exaggerating, wearing like Timberland, like, boots or whatever. And he's actually, oh my God, he's wearing a Falcons jersey. How funny is that? He's wearing a Falcons jersey and like Timberland boots. And so I'm sitting in the lobby thinking, this is my competition? Like, really? So I might have been a little overly confident going into the interview, because I'm like, if it's me versus this guy, like, dude, I got him. I had Vince Dooley and the president of the University of Georgia as references for me. And I'm like, me versus Timberland, dude, I got this, right? So anyway, I go in for the interview and I'm talking to John, and I really don't remember much about what was said in the interview. But what I know for sure is at the end of the interview, he said, Miss Rux, which is my maiden name, Miss Rux, you seem like a very bright girl. I think you got a great future, but we don't have anything for you. And I was like, oh, okay. So I shook his hand and I got up to walk out, and I got like almost to the door of his office when it kind of hit me. Someone says something, it doesn't register right away. You get like, right? And I'm like, and so I walked back to his desk, and my resume is already like face down. And I said, Mr. Wiggins, I said, I think you've judged me unfairly. And I said, you don't know a lot about me, and all you're seeing is this resume, but what you don't know is that I grew up on a dairy farm, and I don't know a lot about this company, but I can outwork anybody I know. And I said, I'm curious. You guys can raise your hand if you know what any of this stuff means. But I said, I can hitch a gooseneck trailer. Does anyone know what that is? Raise your hand if you do. Yes. Okay. I got one, legit. Seriously? One. No, two. I got two. Three. Okay. There we go. That's more than any other call I've ever done. Perfect. But for those of the uninitiated, gooseneck trailer is like, instead the ball for the hitch of the trailer being on the bumper, it's actually in the bed of the truck, so that it comes across like a gooseneck like that in the back of the truck. See, learn something new every day. Congratulations. So then I said, I can hitch a gooseneck trailer. I said, I can drive a front end loader. Do you guys know what a front end loader is? Anyone? I'm getting the hands from the same people, my farm friends. Yeah. Basically, for those of you like, the Tonka truck, the toys on the playground you play with, that have the bucket in the front that go up and down. That's a front end loader. There you go. And I said, and I can castrate a bull. Do you guys know what castrating a bull is? Show of hands. You guys are like, I don't want to raise my hand for that. Raise your hand for castration. Woohoo. No. So, but anyway, but I said that why this comes up in a job interview, I don't know, right? But I literally said all those things. I said, so I don't know about your company. I said, but I at least deserve a second interview. Because he was telling me he wasn't going to bring me back for a second interview. So I walk out of his office and I'm like, good Lord, Brandie, like who talks about castration in an interview? Like ridiculous. So I'm like, okay, no means nuts. Let's keep rolling. Like whatever, And by the way, I already had job offers. Like I was like, it doesn't matter if I don't get this, like I've got other things that, that I'm being offered anyway. So John did call me back for the second. And then fast forward about 4 months later, after we have our morning meeting with everybody, we go back into his office. The people who are training and interviewing that day, go back in his office for a quick little talk, whatever. And we're talking about fear of loss, one of the 4 factors that we talk about. And he and I was like, yeah, just like John tried to fear of loss me in that first round of interviews. And he says, I wasn't trying to fear of loss you. And I said, what was that whole, oh, Miss Rux, we're not going to bring you back for a second interview. And he's like, I really wasn't going to bring you back. And I was like, why would you not bring me back? He's like, honestly, he's like, your resume was like kind of over the top. You had all these references, whatever. And I thought you were going to be a pain in the ass. Like, I thought you were going to go out with somebody and like, bail and be a wuss and like not, he thought I was too prissy. He didn't think I could handle it. Didn't think I handled the rejection and everything else. Right. And I said, so what if I hadn't done the castration speech, as it has now come to be known? And he said, well, then you wouldn't be here right now. And so like, there's a saying that you lose what you don't appreciate. And this is 4 months into the business. And at that point in time, I was doing well, had a couple of people, that I was responsible for, that was on my team and that I was training and things like that. But that was like really my start day in the business, because I realized how close I came to not being a part of the opportunity. And I think I'm so thankful for that, because it gave me such a strong appreciation for the business. And I think I looked at it in a different way than most people do because of that. And so I think about, there's a movie, it's not a great movie, don't watch it, but it's called Sliding Doors with Gwyneth Paltrow. And in the movie, it's like she makes the train and this one set of events happens. And then like in the other split part of the movie, she doesn't make the train and all these other events happen. And to Ken's point, I think about that. What would have happened if I hadn't done the castration speech, right? What would have happened is I would have walked out there. He never would have called me back. And I mean, I don't know where I'd be right now. I will tell you this, Ken, it's pretty funny. My dad, I was at the farm for Easter, but a couple of months ago, I was there. It was just me and my mom and dad. And we were talking about some, business stuff and, some investments and different things like that. And he's like, I still don't understand why you didn't take that job at Georgia, Brandie. And I was like, Daddy, I'm like, I made $42,000 a year, my very first year, commission-based sales without any bonuses. That's almost double what they're offering at Georgia. And by the way, I think it turned out pretty good, Dad. Like, I wouldn't be, flying your ass to Costa Rica and sending you to Europe if I'd taken the job at Georgia, like those things don't happen in that world. Like, so anyway, but it's really funny because here we are, I'm going to be 47 this year. This is when I was 22 years old. He's like, I still don't understand why you didn't take that job at Georgia. I'm like, good Lord, can we go past this? Like, really? Like,
yeah. And I think you said 27 there, not 47. I think you're adding numbers. Yeah. So
no, I'm still taking the opposite approach. Most people try and lie about their age to be younger. I'm like, no, dude, I'm like, I'll say I'm 55, because for my actual age, I'm like, okay. But for like 55, it's like, hell yeah, like bring it. So no, I'm like, I'm going to be 60 before you know it. Just wait.
That's awesome. Well, Brandie, obviously, you coach hundreds of entrepreneurs all over the country. You made such a big impact on the business, and probably besides John, of course, one of the biggest earners in this opportunity ever. So it's pretty awesome to see how you stood up for yourself early in your career, and that's something you've done really all along, and I really appreciate that about you. Any advice for leaders? I know we're coming up on 30 minutes or so, but any advice for leaders? What would you tell yourself back in the day if you want to grow in your career, leadership wise? Any advice for someone that just looks at this opportunity and maybe they're a little unsure about it, but they want to have a really huge career like you've had?
I think the biggest blessing that I have is when I came into the business, I was a blank slate. Like I said, I had no sales experience. And I just did what people told me, right? And because honestly, to that point, no one succeeds, right? Even if unless you succeed, right? So the more people around you, like when the level of the lake rises, it's not just one boat that rises, it's every boat. So everyone that's around you, they have good intentions and they want to help you get better. So like, be open and be willing to the advice, even if it's painful and even if you don't want to necessarily hear it. But the biggest thing I think is playfulness. Like, if you think about the people, the athletes who we love to watch, they're the ones having the most fun, right? Like they're the ones who are like, they're celebrating like the thing. I mean, I hate to use more Georgia stuff, but like if you look at Coach Kirby Smart, when we like that last run, when we got the pick 6 in the national championship, he jumps and his vertical is like higher than like half than the player who caught the ball. Like he's higher than he is. And it's just so fun to watch that when people are really in the zone and in their element. It's fun. And I think sometimes we get in our mindset like, oh, I got to look like I'm working hard. I got to put my head down. I got to whatever. But really, like, it's fun. It's easy. And, we used to say all the time, have fun, make money. And, what I have found is the more playful I am and the more I'm looking for joy and the more I'm looking to, look at, because the same set of circumstances can happen to people. And it's all about the reaction, right? Like when I think about, credit card debt or whatever, I think about something that happens, right? So let's say something bad happens. Let's just say like I have a day where I don't make any money in the field, right? Or let's say that no one signs up with me. So then some people can look at that and say like, oh my God, this sucks. It's awful. And get back here and their fight or flight brain and feel sorry for themselves, victim or whatever. But I have learned over the years, and this is early on in the business too, is I am so thankful that this is happening to me because I have the intestinal fortitude to master this. I'm so glad that I'm experiencing this because when I'm coaching my people, I'm going to help them through this because I've experienced it. And just that little, it's the same exact experience, but like just having gratitude or being curious, like, hey, let me problem solve. I'm curious about how I'm going to overcome this tomorrow, right? Even that curiosity doesn't have to be absolute joy, but it puts you in your frontal lobe in the front of your brain, which is where you can access new information and where you can problem solve. And that's the difference is that like as a leader, like the same stuff's going to happen to all of us, right? But the difference is how we view it and how we look at it. I'm not saying you should be like, woohoo, I rolled a donut today, game on. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is like, if you look at it as a lesson and you look at it as like, hey, what can I take away from this? How can I get better, whatever? Because the other thing that happens is when people judge themselves, think about this. When I'm not doing well in business, I look at the rankings, right? I got news for you guys. It feels like, doesn't it feel like everybody else is looking too? They're like, oh, they're going to see my name. I'm at the bottom of the rankings, but whatever. I got news for every single one of you right now. When you look at the rankings, whose name are you looking for? Your name. Guess what everyone else is looking at? Their own damn name. They're not looking at your name. They don't care. They don't care. So you're judging yourself and feeling bad about yourself and nobody else gives a shit. They're looking for their own name. So we have this self-judgment though, and we're like, oh, I should be doing better, whatever. And but we're creating that for ourselves. No one's making us feel that way but ourselves. So that's the thing. I would say, give yourself some grace. Nobody's watching that closely. They're far too selfish. And when you have that bad day or that thing that happens, whatever, the only one who's making you feel about it is yourself. So stop. It's stupid. Don't do it. Get excited about solving the problem. Hey, I'm getting stronger. I'm getting smarter. I'm getting better. I'm learning, right? And I'll leave you guys with this last statement because it really resonates with me. I used to struggle. And when I say used to, I'm talking within the past 10 years with really negative self-talk. And I would say things like, I would literally say things about myself like, God, I'm so stupid and different things like that, right? And what I realized is that, I consider myself a lifelong learner, right? I always want to learn more, do better, get better. And there's a saying that has resonated with me, and I actually typed it up and put it on my son's door of his bedroom. But success comes from, you guys know what I'm going to say? No?
Failure?
Sort of. We'll get there in a minute. Success comes from good decisions. Good decisions come from experience. And experience comes from bad decisions. Success comes from, right? Good decisions. Good decisions come from experience, and experience comes from bad decisions. So sometimes you got to touch the stove to know that it's hot, and that's okay. Just don't touch it again and again and again. But when you do touch the stove, you got one or two options. You can bandage it up and move on and chalk it up as a learning experience, or you can call yourself names and make yourself feel bad. I'm such an idiot. I shouldn't have touched the stove, blah, 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 whatever. Right. But it's a choice. Understand that it's your choice on how you choose to go through that process.
That's awesome, Brandie. You know, it's one of my favorite quotes I heard in the last year is, from our deepest wounds come our greatest opportunities.
Yeah.
And you know, it's the same thing, you know, and I think of the early days of dating, you find out who you want to end up with by unfortunately making decisions of maybe some that weren't the best fit.
Yeah, 100%.
So,
But have fun.
awesome.
Have fun with it. Like when I'm thinking about all this, like, you know, when you're young, you have so much time to rebound, so much time to rebound. Like there's nothing that's going to happen that you can't come back from, short of fraud, you know, things like that. But like ultimately, you've got so much time to figure this stuff out. I mean, I'm still young. Like we've got plenty of time. Like, you know, so just be playful with it, have fun with it, and enjoy the process.
Awesome. Well, Brandie, thank you so much for taking some time with us today. I really appreciate it. Obviously, I'm incredibly grateful for all the time you spent with me. And for you guys that don't know, Brandie and obviously Brad there in Atlanta spent a ton of time with me young in my career. Is my second year of ownership. We had, you know, 5-6 years of just a ton of fun. And she really opened my eyes to what was possible in my career. And we had a ton of, speaking of ton of fun, there's so many concerts we went to, so many sporting events we went to, and a few games of drinking and playing video games in the movie theater in your basement.
Still have that mug from the, that coffee mug. It was from 2007. I still have that coffee mug from the basketball finals we went to in Atlanta.
Nice.
Crazy.
Yeah, good times.
Yeah.
But thank you so much. Happy Friday, everybody. Thanks again for jumping on this morning. We'll see you guys and we'll talk to you very soon. Take care, Brandie. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.